To everyone that has used any kind of a loot controller before, you know that this is huge. Hey everybody, welcome back to Rust Admin Academy, where I'm teaching you everything that you need to know about owning and operating a successful Rust server. If you're brand new to the channel, consider subscribing so that you stay up to date on everything that we're working on. And of course, if you take any value out of today's video, don't forget to hit that thumbs up and of course, leave a comment down below because I want to know what you think. Alright, so obviously today we're going to be talking about Betterloot. And by Betterloot, I mean Betterloot version 4. It has gone through a complete rebuild. It is no longer the same plugin that it was before. And while the editors we had in the past were really good and saved us all a ton of time, Betterloot version 4 combined with Looty.cc is going to make things even better. So the plugin itself has gone through a complete rebuild. Like I said before, it's no longer the same plugin. You're obviously going to still find it at the same location, but I am going to leave a link to it in the video description down below. But the crown jewel of Betterloot version 4 is actually Looty.cc, which when you first go to that address is going to look just like this. There's probably going to be a sign in button in the top right hand corner for you, but it's just a simple Steam sign in. It's super easy to do. But this right here is actually the best part about version 4. We now have an online editor that is going to feel a lot like the other ones that are out there, but I'm going to show you the differences today. So one of the things that I'm seeing people talk about online right now is they've jumped on umod.org. They saw a new version of Betterloot and they just downloaded that plugin and threw it on their server and expected everything to work. Well, guess what? That's actually not the case. But don't worry, if you did this, you're in good company because I literally did the exact same thing. So one of the most important things that I want you to recognize is that your old loot tables are not compatible with version 4, but Looty.cc gives you a really easy conversion system. So because I did exactly what they tell you not to do on the documentation page for Betterloot version 4, I still have an old data file from the original Betterloot. So what I'm going to do is actually show you the exact process that you need to take in order to make version 4 work for you on your server. So here we are on the Looty.cc website. We're going to jump up here in the top right hand corner. It says Betterloot version 4 under the editors tab. So we're going to open that up and this is going to feel fairly familiar. But if we just take that old Betterloot file and try to upload it into this system, it's obviously not going to work because like I said before, the two don't work together. So go back to the main page, scroll down just a little bit, and you're going to see this converter button right here in the middle. So let's open up the converter. And now you can see that we're able to drag and drop or click and upload our old Betterloot table, and it's going to convert it for us and spit us out a file that we can actually start working with. So I'm just going to drag and drop my old file into this area here. I'm going to let it process that file for me. And once it's done converting, you're going to see this warning dialog pop up. So we've got two options here. We can either take this data file into the editor and make changes to it, or if we were happy with the way it was before we upgraded to version 4, we can just download this file, re-upload it back into our server, reload the plugin, and away we go. Nothing's changed. But in this circumstance, we're going to actually open this up in the version 4 editor and we're going to have a look around. Once you get to this point, this should feel fairly familiar. I'm not showing you anything that's going to like blow your mind. If we wanted to go in and edit what was in normal crates, we of course can do that. So what I want you to recognize is this is now broken into two separate systems. So if you want to use this like we did with the old editors, you can still do that. So if you just work down in this ungrouped items right here, we can change which items and how many of them are going to actually spawn inside the normal crate. So from that aspect, everything is exactly the same as it was before, still super simple, still super seamless. So what's new? Why do I care? And why should everyone be using version 4? Well, they've now added a remove junk feature, which people have been asking for years. And because we're dealing with the normal crate, as you can see here, if you only want to remove the junk from the normal crates, just click on this button right here, right above my head. However, if you want to clear junk across the entire loot table, you can do that too. Go up to editor actions in the top right hand corner, click on clear junk. This is going to remove the junk out of every single container on your loot table. Now you might be asking yourself, okay, what is junk? What does that even mean? Well, we can actually go in and have a look. If you click on this gear icon right next to remove junk, that's going to open up this table right here. It's going to tell you what Looty.cc determines is junk in our loot table. So if you scroll through here, you're going to see a really good list of things that on a modified loot table, you don't necessarily have to have. A lot of these are default blueprints, They're not hard to get. They're also not really used that often. So putting them on the loot table, yeah, I don't really see why you do that. If there's something missing off of this, of course, you can add whatever item you want to be considered junk. And then when you click on the remove junk, it's going to remove that item across your loot table as well. So the remove junk system is fully configurable. You can make it remove whatever you want it to. This top section here is obviously you're determining how many items from your existing loot table are going to actually appear in this container. A lot of this is going to feel really familiar to many of you, but right now I'm kind of talking to the people that have maybe never used Better Loot before. If you want to increase the minimum number of items that you want to have in a loot container, just change it right here. So let's make it 6, for example. If you want to change the maximum number of items that are going to be in your loot container, just change this number right here. Let's make it 12. And same thing for the number of blueprints that you're going to find in this container. Now the scrap amount, I want to talk about this for a second. So basically what we're doing right here is we're determining what the minimum amount of scrap is and the maximum amount of scrap is. Now this is going to be in every single container. So in the normal crate on this server, we're going to find anywhere between 10 and 16 scrap in each and every one of those containers. If you want to add a probability aspect to the scrap that shows up in these containers, then put these both at 0. Now, once we have our scrap set to 0 on max and min, we need to go in and create what's called a profile. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a profile that has scrap in it. Then we can control the probability that that scrap might show up in this loot container. So let's go ahead and we'll start this profile called scrap. And by default, of course, this has nothing in it. So let's just look for scrap in the list. Let's add that. And in here, we get to determine the minimum and maximum number of scrap that's going to show up if this actually gets selected in this loot container. So we're going to leave the minimum. Let's put the minimum at 10 just for argument's sake. And let's put the maximum at 50. And that's good. So let's save this and go back to our containers. And you can see now that we can add this profile that we've now created to this crate or this loot container. And then we get to define a probability you can see right here. So yes, this is enabled. Let's turn that on. And then the probability that this scrap profile is going to get used when the server is selecting which loot is going to end up in this container. So I just changed it to 25% there. So now, as you can see right above my head there, the profiles that we're using on this specific container have a 25% chance of spawning whatever is inside this profile. In this case, it's just scrap. And the rest of the ungrouped items still have a 75% chance of spawning one of those items. So what I want you to see here is the power of setting up a profile. So now what we can do is we could set up, let's say we set up a guns profile or an ammo profile, and then we get to determine the probability that those items are going to spawn within a certain container. It's going to save you a ton of time because you can take one profile and you can add it to multiple different loot containers without having to redo all of the work. So I'm just going to set up a really quick loot profile here. Just give me 1 second. I'm going to edit this part out though. So I've just created this, we'll call it an LR package profile, and we're going to save this right quick. And we're going to go back into our containers. And now you can see that we now have this LR package that we have available to add to this crate. So same as before, we can add it to this crate and whatever, we can do that. But we can also go back into this loot barrel right here and we could add that profile to the loot barrel now. Or if you want to go down here and you want to add it to your oil barrel, you just simply click on the oil barrel and add that profile to the oil barrel. It's just that simple. And each time you add it to a different loot container, you can control the probability that it's going to grab what's in that profile and put it in that loot container. So we've got the old system if that's what we want to stick to, but you have to put your data file through the converter first before you can utilize this system on Looty.cc. We've got the loot profiler now. Like, this is going to be an absolute game changer for people that are sick and tired of dealing with their loot tables. And trust me, I know how cumbersome that is. We can control rarity levels now. We can select everything from common to legendary level. Like the M249 is a legendary level weapon. You don't want it spawning. So you can set that up so that it has a legendary level of rarity, so your server isn't overrun by people running around with M249s. We've got a loot preview, so we can actually go in and see what might generate based on the settings that we've set up. So let's open up the loot preview and let's just see how things look with a couple of rolls of the loot in this container. And we're going to have a pretty good idea of what's actually going to appear for the players in our actual server. So as you can see on this particular roll, I didn't get any scrap on this one, but on this one I did. So you can see how by adding that in there as a profile is giving me the control of determining whether scrap is actually going to show up in this container or not. I hope I've made this point clear. The profile aspect of version 4 is going to be enough of a reason for a lot of people to come back to Better Loot that have maybe moved on to other different types of loot controllers. Always make sure you're saving your work too. I did make that mistake one time where I made a bunch of changes, forgot to save my work, and I actually lost what I was doing. So don't do that. So, okay, great. Now what? Now what do we do with our loot table now that we've finished creating it? Well, we're going to click on download. And this is going to give us the two options. So if we want to download it and manually upload it into our server, the same as we have with Better Loot for years now, you can still do that. You're going to notice when you do that, you now get 2 files though instead of 1. You're going to have one that is called loot profiles as well as loot table. We can also do this download via command. So let's click that button right there. Let's grab this command right here. And I'm hoping you're seeing where I'm going with this. Let's head on over to our server console and just paste it in that command right there. And boom, it now loads everything that we saved over at Looty.cc into our server directly. So attempting to download the configuration file from the code that we just gave it, created a backup, saved loot tables.json, loaded new loot table, created a backup of the loot groups, saved the loot groups. It's now running what we just finished creating on Looty.cc. Now, if you've never used Better Loot or any other loot controller in the past, you might not notice how big that is. But to everyone that has used any kind of a loot controller before, you know that this is huge. So it is incredibly important that I make it super clear that everything that I've shown you up until this point is completely 100% free. The plugin is available from umod.org. The website, Looty.cc, is available for free. You don't have to pay to have access to the editor. The one limitation that you do have on the free version is you can only have one saved loot table in your Looty profile. If you go into your profile here on the top right hand corner and click on billing, you will see other options are available. So if you're a big community and you have more than one server, you might want to have different saved loot tables for each one of those individual servers. Well, of course, you can do that at a cost. If you're a massive, huge organization where you can afford to spend $7.99 a month, you can have access to everything that they offer. Unlimited saved loot tables. Organized collaboration, meaning you can have more than one person working on a loot table all at the same time. Real-time editing, so somebody over here does something, somebody over here sees what's happening as long as you're collaborating at the same time. And as an added little bonus, they also advertise your servers, which as you can see right now, there's not very many of them. So maybe if you hop on board, maybe you get to be one of the first ones. I'm not really sure. I'm not making any promises, but just letting you know that this is here. And it just so happens that while I was recording this video, I got a message from somebody that actually matters. And they said something along the lines of, yes, so it looks like they're going to actually give me some codes that I can give away to you guys. So it looks maybe somebody's going to be getting something for free. So make sure you leave a comment in the comment section down below. Let me know what you guys think. And if you also want to be put in, I don't know, a draw. Let's say maybe people that are interested, put freebie in the comments down below. I don't know how many they're going to give me. Might be 1, might be 100, but the only way for me to know if you want to get one of these freebies is you got to put something in the comment section down below and it has to say freebie. To be fair, I literally got that message while I was recording, so I don't know what those details are, but we'll see what happens. Let's try it. I mean, what can it hurt, right? They're willing to give us some freebies. Let's take their freebies. So a couple more things that I wanted to go over before I let you guys go. So if you saw me in the editor's menu, you probably saw this little tidbit right here. This alpha loot is coming soon and rateable bases is coming soon. Now, when I was discussing this with the developers of this plugin and this website, they actually gave me a sneak peek of it. And I gotta say, it looks pretty good, and I think everyone that uses Alpha Loot is really going to like it. Everyone knows how I feel about rateable bases. I know that people are going to be able to make use of this. Have fun with it. Under the tools section, they've got a really great Rust database for all of your short names, descriptions, all that other stuff that everyone always needs. I have one on my website too. We've got all of our prefab names, all of the different container information, Oxhide hooks if you're into developing plugins, server convars if you're into creating your own server.cfg, and a bunch of information about all of the different monuments around our maps. There's a ton of information on this website, so if for no other reason, you should go there, go to Looty.cc and check out just the website. Even if you don't use the Better Loot plugin, there's still going to be some valuable tools there for you. All right, I know I've rambled on for entirely too long. I totally know that. I'm the first one aware of it. I hope you all learned something from this video. I know that it was a long one. I know that there was a ton of information in there, but I also know that there's like hundreds of thousands of people out there that actually use this plugin that are excited about version 4, but they don't know how to use it and they might not even know it exists yet. So this is me doing what I do. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, you know what to do. Leave a comment in the comment section down below. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next week.